Welcome back to the Courageous Pivot podcast. I'm your host, Meghan Telpner, and welcome for the first time if you're brand new. Thanks for being here. We are exploring what it means to live a courageous life, and we are also taking it deeper. So before we get into today's interview, which is so good, I want to make sure you go over to courageouspivot.com and get on the subscription list, opt-in list, whatever you want to call it over there, because all kinds of things are there waiting for you. Your support of the show is what helps the show keep going and keep serving, keeping available, and keep allowing me to share incredible people like Karla Treadway, who's our guest today. Karla and I have a few really interesting things in common. One being that we both grew up in Winnipeg, which is a very, 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 very cold city in central Canada, the prairies. And she also lives in a small town in northern Ontario called Kenora, which is nearby where I went to summer camp. So I know the world that she speaks of, and I did ask her a lot of questions about life on an island in northern Ontario. Karla and I went so deep into so many things, including her pivot from being a yoga studio owner to an online business coach and entrepreneur and podcast host, to her journey in finding Christianity, finding Jesus, and building a deeper, more meaningful relationship with religion for herself and her family. And I also think she's a bit of a futurist, and we talked about what's next, what we can expect out in the world of both geopolitics a little bit, but also how it impacts us, those of us who are small business owners, how we take on media and how we create media. So much in here. And now let me introduce you more formally to my friend Karla. Karla Treadway is a marketing strategist for brave brands and freedom-focused entrepreneurs. She's the host of the Sovereign Sphere podcast, where they talk about all things business, politics, and living free. She's joyful. She's hilarious. She's so smart. I'm grateful to call her a friend, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Karla Treadway, welcome to the Courageous Pivot podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. I haven't talked to you in so long. I can't wait.
I know, and we went straight to Minnesota, literally. And I was like, I have to hit record. I have to hit record because we can't recreate what we already said.
Oh, man. It's funny. I was thinking about the name of this podcast and the direction before we hopped on. And I was like, oh, I'm so perfect for this. I have pivoted way more than I've ever stayed put.
Yes. And well, I don't know, 8 or 9 months in on a project I thought would be a 3 month fun little thing to do because I'm having trouble being retired. And what it's evolved into is that, and it'll probably be rebranded shortly, but it's not just the courageous pivots. It's that the courageous pivots are the key to living a courageous life, which is what's being called of us now. And it's those pivots is like staying true to your soul and who you are and what you're being called to do. And that takes a lot of work. And what we were just talking about before I hit record, which is that everyone takes these aggressive black and white stances, black or white. If only they did black or white on everything. And in the process of doing so, are entirely losing their way and losing the plot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're losing their way. And also we're losing relationship with ourselves and relationship with other people. And we really need, like, the whole world's just gonna burst into flames soon if we can't figure out how to talk about things and talk about issues. And everyone is really just trying to, like, put their foot in the sand on, like, a certain line and just be like, "Well, if it's not this, it's this." As if, like, we're sitting in our living rooms, like, "Well, I did a little bit of internet research on this, and I know what's going on." Like, there's just a lot of, like, arrogance, and it's making people really intense. Like, I really miss the early 2000s when I didn't know what everybody thought about every issue. I didn't care how people voted. But now I go to the grocery store and I just, like, look at someone and I'm like, "Oh, I know how you vote." Like, why do I even have that thought? Like, that's ridiculous.
I know. I think that what it was, and we're gonna get to your story, and Winnipeg and all the things we have in common. But I think what happened, at least from my stance, is that at different points in your life, you have these moments where you're like, "Oh, that's not what I thought it was." And we have different ones at different places. Like, I had one with my initial health crisis in my early 20s, and they were like little ones ongoing. And then with 2020, I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is way bigger than I thought." And then it uncovered like this whole other layer and level, which ultimately I think the work in that and like following the conspiracy theories, which are super fun, let's be honest, to put your mind into like the craziest ones. You're like, whoa, what if that's real? Or 10% of that is true. What it's actually doing is just making you realize that maybe nothing's what you thought it was,
Which is true. I
which is
mean,
also
but
true. Nothing is what we
it
thought it was.
I think we were right about a lot of those things. The problem is our emotion is directed at the wrong force. We have to keep zooming out because the problem is we're ants in a jar that's being vigorously shook, and we're attacking the other ants instead of looking at the person that's shaking the jar. And it's not like there's like one person, but there are organizations and things happening. And I think like if we could agree on anything, what we have to agree on is we are all being propagandized, all of
Mhm.
us on some level. And until we can at least admit that that is partially true and it's affecting all of us, we're never going to get out of this jar ever.
Okay, I wanna get to your role in the education of how we get at ourselves out of the jar, but we're gonna go back first to let's go back to Winnipeg, where you grew up. Did you grow up in Winnipeg?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know if you, like, moved there later and you actually came from, like, I don't know, Winnipegosis or somewhere else, Gimli, moved to the big city. So you grew up in Winnipeg,
Yeah.
and at what point did you find yoga, and how did it find you?
Mm. So I left Winnipeg when I was 19. I was just a young person back then. I was working at bars and going out and clubbing. Like I wasn't doing myself or anyone like a service. I was just having lots of fun, living the city life. And I met my husband Dan during that time. He lived in Kenora, which is 2 hours from the city in a lake community. And that's kind of a crazy story because I met Dan, never spent any time out here. He lives on an island, like, super remote, and I met this man, literally spent 2 days with him, and we moved in together, got married, and it's been happily ever after. So I moved in with some, like, madman that lived in the woods because I trusted my gut at the wise age of 19, and I've been with him forever since. And, he, at that time, was skiing professionally, so he'd live in the mountains for half the year and then in Kenora the other half. So that's what we did together for 15 years. So always uprooted, moving every 6 months. We also traveled around the world a lot during that time. I had babies during that time, and I loved that nature of everything is always new and constantly being uprooted. I was definitely struggling, like, how do you actually find a job in this circumstance? Like, Dan had 2 crafted jobs, like, he was a carpenter in the summer, and then he was a pro skier in the winter. I kind of did whatever. I worked in restaurants and bars. This is when I got certified to be a yoga teacher. I was doing, like, a little bit of marketing. I was kinda like this, like, jack of all trades, so that's when yoga started. Started building, like, a big community out west, really fell in love with the practice, and when I moved to Kenora full time, when our kids were old enough that they needed to go to school, we had to pick one place, and we picked Kenora because it's probably 4 times as expensive to live in BC, so we moved to Kenora full time. I opened up a yoga studio there and honestly struggled with that transition. Because all of a sudden I was in one place and I hated that. I Most people would have maybe hated how we lived, but I loved it. So I struggled with the idea of being in one place, and I struggled with the idea of what felt like real life because everything we were doing before was, like, pretty exciting and pretty new all the time, and all of a sudden I was just living in a really nice town with like a really nice life, but I struggled with it. I was maybe a little immature at the time. Like I knew on the outside I should have loved this life, but I really didn't. So I made and created the yoga studio as a means to honestly heal myself, to find purposeful work. And I did love it. We worked with a lot of at risk youth. I worked with Indigenous communities. I ran yoga teacher trainings. It was kind of my way of healing the hurt in my heart, was making a job that I loved that helped other people.
Were you living at the time you were doing this, were you living on the island or were you living right in Kenora?
A mix of both. So we have a cottage out here on an island, and we were renting places in town in the wintertime because that was never the plan. The plan was never to live at the cottage. So we would rent places in the wintertime that was road access in town.
When did you open the studio? What year was that? Just to have a bit of a timeline.
I guess 9 years ago.
Okay. And then 2020 came around
Hmm.
and you had to close your studio.
Yeah. And I had built like the biggest yoga and fitness studio in not just like this town, but this entire area. I built like a really solid brand. We were just about to have meetings to franchise it. And then boom, COVID. And I was forced to close my doors on and off for almost 2 years.
Oh my God.
And the money didn't take 2 years to drain. The money took like months. Like, and I realized, oh, like, I am so vulnerable. I had no idea how vulnerable I was. I thought, like, I own my own business, I make my own rules. Nope. And, we did what a lot of people did. We pivoted online. I was, like, staying up all night trying to figure out how I get an online studio. We had moved out to our cottage full time at this point, so I'm having to do all this stuff on my own. Like, I'm not a videographer. Like, video editing, had to learn how to do all of this stuff, had to pour a ton of money into setting myself up online, probably, like, 40, 50 grand into, like, an online setup, and then also try and convince everybody that they should also move online, which is not something that everybody wanted to do. Training all my teachers how to film and, like, get their own setup, and the clients too. Not every well, I don't wanna go online, or I don't wanna have to pay online. Like, it was a nightmare trying to keep things afloat, and I look at, like, photos of myself during that time, and I look like a ghost. Like, I'm just shriveling up. I did what I could to stay afloat, and I was continually getting more and more frustrated, and I was doing different online trainings for myself during this time period just to try and stay motivated and inspired to, like, keep teaching. And I remember in one of my classes listening to my teacher's story, and she was saying, I think it was about a relationship, but she said, when you're resentful, it's time to go." And something about that really hit me, and I was like, I have a whole lot of resentment right now for the people, my teachers even, like, the community for not supporting me, for the government, and my lease was up, and it was a no-brainer. I'm like, "I'm shutting this thing down and I'm walking away. I'm done. It's not worth it." And I knew we weren't gonna be shut down forever, but I certainly didn't trust that it wouldn't happen again, and
Mm.
I just told myself, I'll never put myself into a physical business again. I'll never allow myself to be vulnerable, and that was the end of the studio. Closed everything up, moved to camp.
So you closed your studio, you moved to the island, and I think you have to give a little bit of a context of Kenora and Lake of the Woods, and I'm familiar with it because I grew up in Winnipeg and went to summer camp on an island, not far from where you live, and it's remote. Like,
Mhm.
it's remote in the middle of summer when all the cottages are out and the town is full, and then in the winter, I've never been there in the winter, but in the winter, you're on an island connected by
Mm.
ice roads. Can you talk a little bit, just describe your day-to-day lifestyle there? Because it's
Yeah.
wild.
It is wild. You know, a lot of people have driven across Canada and they may have driven through Kenora. That's not where I live. I don't even want people to know about this place because it's actually so cool. I feel like it's like
It's
a secret. It's basically
wow.
the ocean in the middle of Canada. I live on the ocean. The closest thing that I could compare it to is the Muskokas minus all the people and maybe some of the pretentiousness. It is very, very, uh, it's very remote. There are, like, lots of cabins, like, close to town, but the bulk of the lake is uninhabited, and we have more shoreline than any lake in North America. It goes all the way into the state, so we do this big boat ride to this really cool Caribbean-style island every summer. It's like a 3-hour boat ride to get there. So this place goes, like, on and on forever. There are 14,582 islands. Somebody from Kenora is gonna correct me on that by 1 or 2 islands, I'm sure. It's like living on the ocean. So in the summertime, you're driving your boat to, like, different people's cottages, different islands. The whole town is set up to be able to access things by boat. You can take your boat to the grocery store, to the bar, to the market, to the hospital. Most people are just here in the summertime. In the winter, it gets really, really cold and everything freezes over, and we have ice roads everywhere. So there's ice roads that are connecting all the different islands, and it's like a six-lane highway. So there are people that are ice fishing out there, but also driving all the way into the States via ice road. Um, as far as people that live here full time, there's like 5 families max that I know of, and they're like crazy redneck families with like 11 kids. There's very few people that actually live this lifestyle, and, people always ask, like, "How do you get back and forth and, like, the in between?" That is so cowboy what we do, it's so terrifying. I post my stories every spring. We basically downsize vehicles and drive faster until it's impossible to do so. So you go from, like, the truck to the car to the side by side to the snowmobile, and snowmobiles can actually drive over open water, which is wild. Where we live, we're actually pretty lucky because one side stays frozen and one side stays open because of the current all season long, so we're not technically stuck. In the fall, it's so nasty as it's getting cold and things are freezing, we usually go to town for about a month, or we go travel and just do something in that in between. In the spring, we just tough it out, so we drive the ice road until it's not safe anymore. And when it's not safe anymore, then we quad across the island to the other side where the water stays open. We leave a little tin boat, and then we take that little tin boat all the way down the channel to mainland where we leave a truck, and then we drive all the way around. And yes, it's a huge pain in the ass, and I'm not a fan of the in-between season, but I will take it over living in a city, or a town or being around people any day because people got really weird in 2020 and they never recovered from that. Never.
Yeah, I live downtown Toronto, as you know. But you're also taking your kids to school every day
Yep.
by these means.
Yeah, they boat themselves in the warm weather, and then sometimes they snowmobile to school too, but right now, we're just getting in the car and I'm driving them to school like normal.
Like
And we're
normal people do.
like normal people. I'm a normal person in the winter.
My goodness. And on your island, what do you have in terms of, like, your reserves? Like, you obviously have your own well, septic, like, where's your water coming from, and how much of your own food are you creating and growing?
We have our own septic field, and then the water is just pumped out of the lake, and we have a UV filtration system, that we use to make the water clean. We have a couple different buildings on the property. We have a bunch of great big gardens. We do a lot of gardening. We have chickens, and we have about 5 freezers full of meat that we have hunted or fished ourselves. So, lots of moose, lots of deer, lots of fish from the lake. Yeah, we're definitely not off grid. We have, like, internet and a hot tub, but we could be if we wanted to. We could definitely live that kind of lifestyle. I wouldn't want to, but Treadway family could.
Okay, so you closed your studio. You moved onto this island full time, realized you had to completely reimagine how you made a living. And at the same time, was it at the same time that you were kind of opening your eyes to the world we were living in?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So when the studio was closed, I started saying some terrible things online, like we should respect other people's personal medical decisions. And maybe mandates aren't a good idea, or maybe we should question lockdowns. Stuff that I thought was pretty tame back then. And I lost every single one of my, 5,000 followers at the time that I worked so hard for. Like, I was down to, 1,000 followers, lost all of my friends, all of my close friends, wouldn't talk to me. Lots of clients, community, and I remember just sitting at, that pile of, really, not thinking I said anything controversial at all, with nothing. And that was at the time where there was a lot of compelled speech too, like, you would be punished if you didn't do the black square, and I actually look back on, my yoga studio materials on, my old account. I had posts that said things like, "'Kay, I'm not gonna talk today. We're silencing ourselves for melanated voices." Like, I was scared and playing into, all that, prior to COVID. And I remember just sitting at that pile of, "Okay, everybody has left me. Now what?"
When everyone left you, was it like a gut punch or did you take it like, all right, well that's been cleansed out? Like how personal did it feel at the time?
Very personal, very personal. It felt like a huge gut punch. It felt like I had been abandoned, especially the close friends, that really stung. And at the same time, I need to also remind people that the prime minister was going on TV saying things like, "These people are racist, they're misogynist, how long will we tolerate people?" I actually felt like in danger. I thought I needed to escape Canada, and that is not a crazy thought for me to have held, considering the circumstances and considering the language that they were using. I was legitimately fearful for my life. And then to see, the prime minister saying things like, "How long will we tolerate these people?" And then to hear my circle of friends parrot that same, "I can't tolerate people like you." And I thought, "Oh god, people are gonna do just whatever the TV tells them to." That's really scary. So at this time, I felt, pretty shattered. And the right people kind of just surrounded me from, honestly, this internet space, and they were just like, "Keep going. Keep doing it." So I just kept on talking. Like, at that point, I had already lost everything, everything. So I there wasn't anything else for me to lose at that point. So I kept on talking and kept on getting more brave with my messaging. And I do things differently now, but at that time, I definitely had my backup. I was more angry. I was using a lot of, satire and, lots of memes, but I think, I really needed to. I needed to feel really brave at that time because so much had happened, and I was feeling really vulnerable, so kept on talking, and all of a sudden, there was, lots of people surrounding me, and now, I was looking at it the other day, there's probably, I think I have 125,000 people in, all these different communities that have showed up and said, "I hear you," "Me too." All of that rallied around me, and I've been careful how I gather people. It's easy to gather people around, rage and fear. I try and talk about things that are happening without ever showing up with the intention to polarize or scare people. So I think we built, a pretty cool community of people that are kind of on the same page. We just want, honest conversations and transparency and freedom of speech. And where did that take me? That took me to helping people do what I did. So, we have a construction company, we have Airbnb businesses. I've have experience in marketing, the yoga studio. So I just started really helping people like, okay, a lot of you are also feeling stifled in what you can say because you work for other people. What if you could work for yourself? How do you do that? How do you get started? How do you build a business online, a brand online? How do you get your message out there in a non-polarizing but attention grabbing way? That's what I started doing. So just really leaning into the entrepreneurship side of things, the marketing side of things, helping all these people that had gathered around me. How do you create more freedom in your life by way of entrepreneurship so that you can also talk about the things that you still care about, work with the people that you actually want to work with, and not lose yourself in the process is basically how I got here.
I think one of the greatest blessings there I think there were a lot of blessings that came out of the first half of this decade, and the connections that formed with other people were so fast and so deep and so real. Um, I count some of the people I met over the last 5 years I never would have met otherwise as some of the greatest blessings and greatest friends. And I remember my own clarity moment, I think it was 2021 when I kinda tiptoed through all my live classes, and I'd always greet everyone like, "Hey, guys," then I was like, "Hey, folks," and I'm like, "That sounds weird, that's not how I talk." And then after that, I was like, "I'm done." I was like, I'm done pretending to play this game, to not offend, and I'm like, "It's impossible." It's like, my intention is never to offend, so if someone takes offense, that's their stuff, not mine.
Mhm.
So as you kinda grabbed hold of who you are now or who you were then when you started this new endeavor, was there any doubt or fear, or do you remember the moment when you thought, "Wait, I can do this and it's gonna work?" Or are you still wondering, "Can I do this? Will it work?"
Yeah, like rebuilding the business online or I started a podcast at the same time. I think every entrepreneur like has that thought monthly at least, right? Cuz things are hard and they're always up and down. So that thought comes to me often. When you're flying high and things are working, you're not worried about it, but anytime you hit a low, of course that's like the first thing that like bubbles up. And things are always changing. As
Yeah.
women, like, we're cyclical, so, like, if ovulation week, I can do everything, and then, like, that luteal week, I really doubt myself in all areas of life, and I just need, like, that week to pass. But the markets change constantly. AI is changing everything, so there never is this place that I arrive at where I'm like, "I've got it." There won't be any more problems. There always will continue to be problems. So yeah, I do still doubt myself. There will keep being ups and downs, and I've realized that's just like part of the game.
Mhm. When you were practicing yoga and traveling a lot, how much of the spirituality of that and I wanna get to your religious pivot, but how much of the spirituality of that yoga did you take with you into what you're doing? Like a lot of the ancient traditions of tuning in and trusting your heart and a lot of the things that go with a spiritual practice.
None of those things really served me during the worst of it. None of it did. And I can kind of jump right into like the religious pivot at this time too. So during the trucker convoy, I got a phone call with someone saying, Do you wanna help the truckers?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And I had, like, my car packed ready to go at that time. I was gonna go to Ottawa. And then I got a phone call, and it was a job to help this documentary team, and I said, "Yeah, like, I'll take that." And I kinda took it as a sign, like, "Oh, maybe this thing's gonna be dangerous, maybe I shouldn't go." So my job was basically, like, looking at media and then looking at the footage and, like, deciding what is true and accurate. So that was, like, a big awakening to see, like, how much propaganda was being fed to us by mainstream media, and one of the first things I noticed was almost everyone on this team was a Christian, and I thought, "Oh, this is interesting." And at that time, one of my best friends was also a yoga studio owner, and we had done all kinds of yoga trainings and like shamanism and Eastern wisdom. And I was a mess. She was a mess. Like those things were not helping at all. Our teachers that were running these trainings, they were also in a really dark place. And I'm like, this stuff doesn't seem to be working right now. And I remember one day she said, "Well, you know what time it is?" And I said, "What?" She said, "Well, it's time for Jesus." And I thought, "That's weird. That's weird that you would say that." And I feel that too. Then I end up haphazardly working with this documentary team, and everybody is on that page. Everyone that I was podcasting with, they start talking about how th- like this is their belief system as well. I'm all of a sudden I'm just like surrounded by Christians everywhere, and I'm not someone that like falls to peer pressure. And there was a podcaster that I was listening to. I won't name names because it's his personal story to tell, but he went along with the convoy, and then one day he just disappeared, and he was doing this daily show, and I thought, "That's weird," and I had this thought pop up. This thought came into my head very clear that's like, "You should send this man a message," and I have never done anything like this in my life before, but I felt so convicted to do this, to send this total stranger an email. And I sent him this email saying like, "Don't worry, what you're seeing isn't what you think it is. It's not this, it's that." Like basically I described everything that this man was seeing in Ottawa. And he wrote me back right away. And I said, "Oh, like, do you not get a lot of emails?" And he's like, "I get a lot of emails." I think at this time he was getting like a million downloads, like a month, lots and lots of people. And he said, "That's exactly what I'm seeing." Like, to a T. So much so, like, basically, he saw these, like, agent this is a crazy story, speaking of tinfoily. He saw these, like, agents come in, and they would take off their sunglasses, and he said, like, their eyes were just black. Like, all I could feel was, like, evil. Evil when I looked at, like, these eyes. And he's like, "I thought I was going crazy." So I left. I went all the way back home, and I, like, walked into the doctor's office, and I said, "Give me the pill that fixes it. I think I'm going crazy." And then some lady that I've never met just sends me an email describing everything that just went down and said not to worry, and sends, like, a very specific Bible verse, the same Bible verse that I just happened to read that day. This man wasn't a Christian at the time, by the way, but he had picked up a Bible that day, read the same Bible verse, and I was like, "Oh, something's happening here." And he's since become a Christian as well and has lots of this content. That is my pivot, and that's been the only thing actually that's been changing my approach to the world. And it's not that there aren't tools that work, but for me, the tools that I learned in the past were very surface level. It was a Band-Aid. It didn't actually help problems deep down, whereas this new path for me has, and it gives me a better outlook on the world, a more rootedness. And that story that I just told you that happened with this complete stranger, that stuff happens to me all the time now. Like, it's not just a belief system for me, I get, like, proof like that all the time.
How did that land in your family?
Fine, the whole family started going to church. My husband and I both grew up in Christian homes and then wanted nothing to do with it as
Yeah.
adults. And we both all felt that like, yeah, it's time to go back to church kind of energy. So that was
I don't know a lot about Christianity. I know there's like, you know, all different varieties
Mhm.
and approaches and different levels of consciousness around it. What do you and your family get from going to church? Like, what are you hearing? What are the sermons, if that's what it's called?
we go to a little tiny Baptist church. It's run by a bunch of Brazilian immigrants. It's a really humble, positive place to be. And I've never been to a Catholic church. I've never been to a place that's, like, adorned in gold and there's, like, lots of ritual and power. I don't know what that's like. I've never seen that. I go to a very, like, small, humble, positive community that talks about loving your neighbor and loving Jesus and how to become a better person and, like, just goes through the Bible. That's what the sermons are like. Really understanding Jesus's heart, really understanding his teachings, and helping people get deeper into the word. I also go to a women's Bible study, which I never thought in a million years I would do anything like that, and I get more out of that, deeper spiritual conversations, hearing people's stories. Why do I go to, like, a physical building like church? Personally, it's more for the kids, to be surrounded by these people because that's what happened to Dan and I, and even though we resisted it, a seed was planted, a very positive seed, and we did return to this. And I see a lot of messaging in the community or like online, like, well, I believe in Jesus, but I'm not religious. And I understand what they're saying, but the reason, okay, one, I don't care what people are, if they're Jewish or Catholic or Protestant or like all these things. If that's what they're talking about, like, I don't think that matters, like at all. But church actually is important. Now, that group of women that I meet with on Tuesday nights, I also consider that church. My friend lives in the jungle saving people from, the Burmese army, and he ministers to some people in the jungle. That's church. So I don't think you necessarily have to go to a physical building. However, people very loosely hold beliefs like, "Yeah, I believe in some guy in the sky," and like, "Yeah, I believe in that. I don't need to go to church." But the reason for church is to study, to understand the word, and, like, the more that I learn, the more interested I actually am, the more that I understand how much I don't know, and I think every person, number 1, should just have a relationship with God and be able to talk with God. That is the most important thing to do, 1. The next important step is actually to read the word to actually understand, because there's so many people right now criticizing religion and the Bible. They have no idea what it even means. They've never read it. And the reason for church also is because I don't think as an individual you can just read it because it is complex. You have to understand the language, the historical context. So that's where teachers come in. So I don't think you necessarily have to be in like a church, but you have to be careful who your teachers are and their education and being able to like properly teach the word. And there's going to be right teachers and wrong teachers for everyone. And I see a whole lot of people taking little snippets on the internet and twisting it and manipulating it, and I see all these people, like, cheering in agreement, like, "Yeah, I also believe this," and I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not what that says, like, at
Mhm.
all." And that's cool that that's, like, your belief, but, like, it's actually not, like, what it says or what it means, and that's the reason for church is actually just, like, understanding, 1, but 2, community.
Mhm. How did you happen to like, it surprises me that a Brazilian Baptist church would exist in the town of Kenora.
I
Like,
know.
did you know of this place?
It's so good because like, church people can be, like, all these, like, white, stuffy, like, shy people, and then the Brazilians come in, and they're, like, really loud and really expressive. It's been so awesome that they've come here. They're great. And that church was, like, small and dying and not many people pre-COVID. It is busting.
Wow.
I believe that there's revival happening everywhere. There are people like, I get messages all the time from, like, old friends that were drug dealers, like, drug dealers, crazy party animals, and, like, they're all like, "Hey, I just got baptized." Like,
Yeah.
there's something happening right now, and it's good.
Yeah, it gives me so much hope. And I think through the COVID years, someone very close to us as well, turned to Christianity. I mean, we in our own family as a Jewish family after October 7th really reconnected. Like, it was no longer taken for
Mhm.
granted who we are in the world and our history and our grandparents' history and, infusing that. And, you know, with every we all my husband and I both went to Jewish elementary school, Jewish summer camps, and you know, there's things you learn that should not be always taken at face value, and, you know, as a questioning person, it's good to go into these things with an open mind and open to questioning and seeing, you know, what lands and what doesn't. But I it gives me so much hope that so many people are finding their way to all sects of religion, in that
Mhm,
what I feel like we lost over the years, like decades, is a framework of love and kindness to live by, and I
mhm,
believe all religions at their core offer that.
mhm. Yeah, and it's so good to question, and we should question, but there's a lot of people that are questioning and they have opinions, but they never actually look at the material in depth that
Yeah.
they're questioning. And I think it's a Russell Brand quote where he said, "Humans are designed to worship." So we thought that we could be like this secular society and remove religion. Oh no, we replaced it with all kinds of really messed up stuff. That's like wokeism is a religion. Like we just took that and supplanted that in the place of religion. We actually can't live without religion. So I think we need to be careful what belief system we're following because your human mind will find something else to follow.
Yeah, like, are we worshiping TikTok, and how is that serving
Totally. Yeah.
generations?
Mhm.
That's what I mean by questioning. It's like, be mindful of what you follow,
Mhm.
because if it is something that is turning you against your friends and family, turning you against anything. I mean, it's not that you have to align or agree, but,
Uh-huh.
you know, there's something to acceptance
That's right.
with love and kindness in your heart.
And I love that the Bible encourages us to look at the fruits.
Mm.
So, because there are a lot of bad teachers and there are people that will deceive you. So what do? You look at the fruits. So there's a lot of people right now continuing down paths and they're like, but this is the light and this is the way. And I'm like, oh, really? You're anxious and you're stuck in your house and you're depressed and maybe you had an affair. Maybe you're starting to get like addicted to your phone or addicted to substances, but like sometimes you get these little hits of bliss. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what we need to be really discerning of. What actually is the outcome? And there's too much praise of intention, too much praise over ideology. This is why I critique the government all the time. I'm like, "I don't really care about your nice speeches. I don't really care about, like, all the things you're gonna do and wanna do and say you're all about. What happened when you did that?" And we don't do enough of that. Like, what's the outcome? And, if anyone is, like, looking for, like, their way, their path, like, that's the thing they keep checking in with. Like, what's the outcome? It's okay to dabble down different paths, but what happened when you did that? I'm reading a beautiful book right now, rereading it. It's called The Principle of the Path, and it basically just says, like, we don't get somewhere by accident. There is a very specific road that leads to very specific places, yet we end up in these places where we're divorced, depressed, poor, and we're like, "How did I get here?" And like, "Well, you took that path." There's a road, you took it, and we're constantly trying to get places in work or spirituality, and then we accidentally take steps off. We get tempted in other directions, we get distracted, and that's a road. That's a road that we took, and there's warning signs along the way. It's a great book to revisit in 2026 if you're, like, trying to go somewhere specific.
It is sort of I often think of, you know, traditional values or traditional ways of eating or all these things that were always done that way for there was a reason why they were always done that way. And I mean, not everything, but there's value in a lot of things that have always worked, you know, around family and around belief and religion and ritual of whatever kind it is, ceremony of whatever, you know, that maybe was passed on to you or was introduced to you when you needed it. And there's also value in letting go when, like you said, the outcome is not serving.
Like, I'll give you a really simple example, and people are gonna hate this. So, like, young feminist Karla, when I got married, I was like, "I'm not making my man a sandwich, like, I'm not subservient to him, like, mm." Well, the Bible teaches, like, a hierarchy. Like, man follows God, women follows husband, and people get all kinds of feelings about that, right? Like, "No, like, they're equal," and the reasoning in the book is that you're gonna have a lot of complicated decisions that you're gonna butt heads in. And if there is a hierarchy, there's gonna be more harmony in the relationship. Now, there's lots of caveats to that. Women don't have to follow any man. It says first, like women be, I hate this word, I hate it, subservient, like serve your husbands. But then it says men lay down your lives. Lay down your tone, you lay down everything for your woman. There's not a lot of men that are deserving of being followed. So, a man that is godly, of good character, who is laying down his life to do everything for his woman, that is someone that is worth serving. So, even coming back to these like very traditional ideas, like my marriage is so much better like, following these principles, things that I always, always rejected as someone in my 20s who wanted to be more feminist, more equal, and I know every relationship's different, but there is way more love and harmony and peace in my marriage, with that kind of understanding.
Yeah. I think it's important for people listening to recognize that, first of all, don't get your knickers in a knot over this. If this is like, "What? No, no, it's
I
fine. You're
know.
fine.
Hey,
It's all
me too.
fine."
Me too.
Yeah, no, but I think that it's just the idea of, like, asking yourself, "Is this working? Is my relationship with my spouse working, my partner? Is my relationship with my children working? And if
Then
it's not working, what is in my capacity to shift, whether it's a day-to-day habit, a mindset, an attitude, um, a language, a tone of voice, what can I do to make it work? Because I want it to work."
Mhm,
And we have to be willing and open to ask ourselves this, and also be willing and open to what guidance comes in whatever form it may come without shutting it off because
mhm.
it it aggravates a 15-year-old version of yourself too.
That's right. And hey, if it's not broke, like if everything's working 100%, great. Like I tell marketing clients that all the time. Like, this is like a big one. In general, the reason why most people aren't making money and successful is because they're doing too many things. Does that mean that you can't have multiple streams of income or that you can't do multiple things? No. But I'm saying if you are trying to make more revenue and it's not working, that's probably the first thing that we're gonna look at as a principle, as a general
Mm,
understanding. There are gonna be super ADHD people that just fly past that rule. Great. But there are, like, realities. There are, like, general understandings of what works and what doesn't, and it's good to understand basic principles, whether we're looking at relationships or money or any of these things, it's good to understand in general, this usually works.
mhm. Living on your island, tapped into a Brazilian Baptist community, reading the Bible,
Mhm.
and also creating deep, often hilarious content videos, we'll call them little documentaries about the shitstorm of the geopolitical global situation. How do you contend all of those things? Or why do you keep doing it?
Oh, man. I actually just this weekend was sitting with those 3 questions. Like, I did it for work and then I did it for the podcast. Why am I really doing this? Like, just trying to find, like, a North Star again. Like, why am I really doing this? What's the intention? What do I need to learn in order to do this well? What do I need as, like, my own personal tether? I literally just did this weekend. Why do I do all of it? I have tried to block out the world and just focus on, like, business and family. I can't. I can't because the worldly things, like, impact us. But I can't just focus on the world, because I will be a miserable human being if I just constantly look at all the problems. So I need, like, work and family and simple things in order to balance that. And I think I'm one of the unicorn people that has the capacity and energy and ADHD-ness to be able to handle this, so I almost feel like a sense of duty, like, "You can do it, so you should."
Do you ever fall down the path of, like, for lack of a better word, absolute terror or fear as you are uncovering and putting, not just 2 and 2 together, but, it's bigger than that?
No, never. I think that's, like, my belief in God, and
Mm,
having so much of this actually laid out, like, it says, like, "Expect this. This is happening, and fear not." Like, the words "fear not" in the Bible happen more than any other sentence.
mhm,
You don't have to be worried. Understanding too, like, I also look at it as, like, a historical text. I don't think it's just nice stories in there. It is also historical text, so, when people are freaking out about, like, "Oh, things have never been so bad." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? People have thought it was the end of days since the beginning of days." Like, in the Bible, they're like, "Hey, Jesus is coming any day now." Like, you wanna live through the plague? Like the medieval time? No way. It's always been way worse. Even if you look not so far back in history, I think it was Tony Robbins saying the other day, if you heard the way that, like, Thomas Jefferson talked to his political opponent, like, it would make you blush. There is nothing new under the sun. Nothing.
mhm,
World wars, the conflict, all and it's the only thing that's changed is the media landscape, and we just know too much about it. So that I think that's the thing that, like, really keeps me grounded is, like, my faith, but also, like, I read a lot about history. This isn't anything new, and I forget that sometimes, and I get really, like, wound up, but the internet is inflaming all of
yeah.
us.
Is your husband interested in these topics?
Very little. He spends 0 time on the internet. I'm allowed to talk to him about politics for 5 minutes in the hot tub, and then that's it. So, I usually save it for, like, really important stuff or, like, things that would affect, like, our investments. I'll be like, "Hey, you need to pay attention to this," but he really doesn't care. He doesn't care because of how we live. Like, even, like, the worst possible thing that I could think of is actually, like, the power grid going down. Like, that's, like, the worst possible thing that really could happen outside of, like, maybe nuclear war. And even that, when there have been real threats of that, he goes, "Good, I'm ready." Like, Mad Max, like, "I don't care." He's like, "We need a restart." And I think that also helps me with, like, no fear. The world is so chaotic, and the things that people are worried about and fighting over are not real problems, a lot of them. We almost do need a reset, and when you read books like The Fourth Turning and you understand that, again, this is like a historical cycle where we live in harmony, things start getting more heated, we get more individual, and then, like, boom, it erupts. And then after the eruption, we go back, small communities, peace and harmony. Okay, let's simmer down. Crisis and bad things in history are like a reset button that we need. And that's scary to think that humans have to go through pain in order to, like, shake themselves awake. But it's necessary, just like we need forest fires for new growth. It's necessary.
Mhm.
And maybe that's, like, the part of me that likes to zoom out. We don't do we're literally stuck in the smallest little thing possible. No, we need to zoom out. We need to look at how nature functions, how patterns have always been this way, like, historically, cyclically. We have to go back in time. We have to look from up above, like astronaut viewpoint. We don't do enough of that. We go a social media video is like the complete opposite of that. And that's where the fear lives.
Have any of your friends, former friends, reached out to you since that shedding?
No. I see them and we smile and we pretend like nothing ever happened, and I've realized, it's just never gonna happen, so I'm just nice and pretend like there's no issues. It's one of those things where I am open to the conversation at any time if anyone wants to have it, but I'm never gonna be the one to start it, and I think a lot of people are probably embarrassed about their behavior during that time.
You should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that popped into my heart, so I asked it. But for lack of a better word, like you're my news. I don't really, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not on Instagram anymore. Where do you think all of this is going with, you know, video content getting shorter, the inflammatory mainstream media gasping its last breath, people, I think, or maybe it's just me, but sort of moving away from, optimally, they're moving away from being on these things 24/7, having it as their first point of contact. And with AI doing everything they tell us it's going to do, will it? I don't know. What does your magic ball say? What's coming?
One, social media has an end date. So if you are a
Yeah.
business owner and you really care about growing your business online, you I don't like the word should, but, milk the next 5 years. Milk it, work it if you care about it because I don't it's not gonna be around forever. Even people like, I love social media, it's easy for me, I can make, like, high performing content in 10 seconds. It's not a lot of work for me, it's fun for me, I'm over it, I'm done. So, everyone's getting sick of it. People don't like it from the creators to the people consuming it. We're all done. We're all recognizing the negative effects of it on us. We're all gravitating towards longer form content. So, personally, I've been spending way more time with my show, The Sovereign Sphere, way more time on Substack. I'm nervous for Substack to be to turn into a cesspool like the other apps have. There's an end date. There's a time limit. We also have governments trying to ban social media platforms, which I think is horrendous and tyrannical. I don't think they should be able to do that. So it might come from them, but I think a lot of people are really interested in long form, real human content. I think in person is going to become more and more valuable. If you are able to use your voice and speak on a stage, I think you're going to do very, very well. I think all the people that are using AI to make their content, you're in trouble. Not only because people can tell, they can always tell. I don't care if you trained it, I don't care if you've plugged in your brand voice, we can all tell. And you're getting dumber when you use it. That's a big problem.
I've been thinking about this AI, and I think that it is, first of all, I don't think there's 5 years left. I think there's maybe 18 months of
Yeah.
actual impact for small business. Maybe, maybe. Um, but I think artificial intelligence is processed food of the brain, where it took people 30 years to clue in how deadly ultra processed food is to every organ in the body, and AI is gonna do the same for the brain.
Yep. Yeah, I've actually been, revisiting The Artist's Way book this year, because 'cause I'm trying to save my brain. I do use AI to, edit things and, I still use it. I just don't let it write my content for me. So I've been trying to read more, write more, and break my own dopamine addictions as a way to, preserve my brain. You're right, there's an end date, and then there's also the technology side of things. We're not gonna have phones forever. Where they want us to go are these stupid Meta glasses. This will be the future, and imagine, already, you go to the gym and everyone's hunched over looking at your phone. Now we're all gonna have these stupid glasses on, so there's not gonna be a scrolling feature. What will happen is the algorithms will know what you like, and you'll just be shown what you like. So there'll be less discovery in the future. This is such a terrifying dystopia. So by the time we get to that point, I'm done, and I'm just homesteading. I might just have, a homesteading hunting channel on YouTube maybe. Maybe that's the kinda content I'll make, because like those old e everything that we've done in marketing in the last 5, 10, like it's gonna change in a big, big way. So I actually think this is good news. Like the social media thing was like fun while it lasted, but like with like nuclear bombs about to be dropped on that, and it's probably good for us. As AI makes things more and more perfect, the good news is you can make crappy content right now. My best content is me just like shaky video, talking outside, like talking from the heart. That stuff's going really well. So if you're like on the fence about making content, like it's go time to just like be yourself, talk, doesn't have to be highly produced, and back to like in person things. That's where we're going. The pendulum has swung too far, and now we're going to go back to some new version of the 90s, I think.
I loved the 90s.
Oh, we were so
So good,
lucky. We were so lucky to
right?
live through that.
I know. I know. I mean, no one from the 90s talks to me anymore, but other than that,
Oh, man, my friend's grandma's turning 100 this week. Can you imagine being 100? All the things that you've lived through, and, like, now, like, she's gonna see robots in people's homes.
I
That's
know. I mean, I also feel like that at 46 when I give my son like, I found a boombox on Marketplace. I gave him my CD book. He's got a Rubik's Cube, knitting needles. I'm currently researching home phone lines. Like, I it is the 90s in my house. I only and I think only because I don't wanna have to police life in any other way.
Mhm.
He's rewinding a cassette. It's like the Loon Call Opera we found at a vintage store. He's like, "Why does it take so long to revert?" I'm like, "It's rewinding and it's a process." Because the I'm, like, explaining this to him. I was like, "This is an opportunity to practice patience." Like, "I'm bored." I'm like, "Good, good.
Yes.
I'm glad. I've
Yep.
done my job."
Yeah, you know what? I started guitar this year also because I'm like, I need something that doesn't produce dopamine. Like, this is hard. I have to use my brain a lot. This is like, yeah, it's a struggle for me. And like, I need a struggle and I need to be bored. That's like the best thing we can do for ourselves and for our kids too, not just always giving them the screen.
Yeah. As we wrap up our time, which I could just keep talking to you. I love you. You're such a wealth of knowledge. What does it mean to you to live a courageous life?
I think it's really just like your, show name suggests. We have to be open to pivot. We have to always practice, like, self-reflection. You've never arrived. You've never figured it all out, and if you can maintain that idea, you will be okay because 'cause you're gonna have to know how to adapt. So, like, my podcast is called The Sovereign Sphere, and all kinds of people argue about, like, what's the best way to be sovereign. There's people that will tell you it's owning your own business, and then all the Bitcoiners are like, "No, it's only Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the way," and then there's people that say, "No, you gotta leave the country." Other people say, "You need a homestead." They're all wrong. There is no perfect place or path to pursue where you are safe and immune from problems. It doesn't exist. This beautiful homestead that we have, like, what if fire rips through it? Oh, you got your Bitcoin empire? What happens when they shut off the internet? I can already hear, like, the Bitcoiners are like, "Oh, we're gonna do this." But, like, there is no perfect situation. There's no perfect country, there's no perfect plan. You follow the path that you think is right for you, but you don't pretend that you've arrived ever, that you've ever figured it out. You have to always be open to being wrong, and that's, like, the real courageous thing, is understanding that you are infallible, that you are vulnerable, and you will figure it out if something changes.
I'm gonna trust your judgment. There are certain people, in the last 5, 6 years, I'm like, if they leave Canada, then I know something's gotta shift quickly, and you're one of those people. I was like, if you ever skedaddled on out on your little airplane, be like, "Okay, I need them to come back and pick me up."
That is something to watch because 'cause we're not leaving, we are staying put. It would have to be really, really bad. So, you
I
won't.
just I just having looked around and people ask me often, especially because I do live right downtown and I love living where I live. Like, why? Why are you still there? Where would you go? And the reason why I haven't left is because I don't see a place where it would be better. And things change. Like, you can't move somewhere because of, who sits in a certain office for a period of time. You can't, or who doesn't. You know, it's like the work, as we've talked so much about, the work is in ourselves, in our homes, in our families, to find those places where we can be happy, truly.
That's right. You need what's going to make you happy, what makes you feel the most secure. Where do you have community? We looked at land in El Salvador and I was like, eh, it's just land. It really means nothing. Nothing
Mhm.
without like community there and safety and connections and all of these things. So you can get those things anywhere. There is no perfect place.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thanks for all your wisdom.
It's so good to see you.
You too. Thank you, as always, for listening through to the end. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Karla. All of the resources, she mentioned a few books, and her offerings are all available in the show notes. Go over to courageouspivot.com and you will find Karla's episode. Click on it, and everything is there for you. And while you're there, please subscribe to the show. Thank you, as always, for being here and listening. If this episode resonated with you, think of 2 people in your life who you think could gain valuable insight from it and share it with those 2 people. That means a lot, as do your comments and reviews. I always love hearing from you. Thank you, as always, for being here, and we'll catch up again next week. Have a great rest of your day.